Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, before the transcendental instruction begins, we'll have less transcendental instruction. Please turn your cell phones off. Krishna is discussing the nature of himself. This is a highly transcendental discussion. The Supreme Lord is all-powerful and He owns everything. More or less, any theistic tradition will accept this, whether Christian or Muslim or whatever. The Vedic literature gives not just these two qualities, but 6 principal qualities of the Supreme Lord. The first 2 are that He owns everything and He's all-powerful. Aishvaryasya, Samagrasya, Viryasya, and then also Yashasha, Shriyaha, Jnana, Vairagya, Yoshaya, Shannam, Bhagi, Itindyana. Also there's first of all the opulence is mentioned, then the strength, but then also that He's all famous, all beautiful, all knowledgeable, and all renounced. Sometimes this renounced is a little difficult to understand. When we see someone in this material world, when they're renounced, it usually means they're very poor also. So how can you how can you own everything and also be renounced? If you're renounced, you shouldn't have anything, right? If you see someone with all gold rings and jewels, you don't think that's a renounced person. You think, well, that's a big Bhog-vilasi, a big sense enjoyer. Well, Krishna is a big sense enjoyer. Of course, His sense enjoyment is completely transcendental. Here in this verse, Lord Krishna speaks about His renunciation. Another perspective on which it might be difficult to understand, it's just like people, they daydream. If I had crores of rupees, I would enjoy this way, that way. If I was chief minister, I would do this and I would do that. So can you imagine someone if they got crores and crores of rupees and then they just sat in a hut and did nothing? It doesn't seem to make any sense, does it? If you have lots of money, you should enjoy the world. Go on holiday to California. Just like this Ambani, one of them brothers, he did for his wife's birthday, he brought her a big jet plane. He didn't buy her a ticket on a jet plane, he bought her a whole jet plane. Someone might think, well, if I become very successful, I'll have a lot of money in my bank account. But someone else will think, well, if I'll be successful, I'll own the bank. So different people have different levels of expectation. But whatever anyone can dream of, they can't even imagine what it's like to be as rich as Krishna. Someone may say, I'll give you the whole planet. And someone else may say, well, it doesn't matter, I already have so many planets. So we can't imagine, from our perspective, we can't imagine how rich is Krishna. Well, that's why He's renounced. He doesn't care for the little pleasures of this material world. Someone may give his wife a jet plane for her birthday, but there are much better planes in the spiritual world and they all fly toward Krishna. And they never crash, they never get hijacked, they don't make any pollution or noise. So why should Krishna be attached to anything in this world? It's just it's a last class kind of place. So that's one feature of His renunciation. Even though He controls everything, He's not interested in enjoying this miserable material world. Another feature of His renunciation that's described, that even though in the rasa dance there were millions of gopis dancing, but Krishna left. So no one could imagine leaving so many beautiful women. But Krishna did so to increase their feelings for Him. And this shows that Krishna, He's not overcome by the good looks, or this in itself is not sufficient to attract Krishna. He is attracted by the love of His devotees. And to increase their love, He may sometimes even leave them. So, Prabhupada gives a very good example here, that the proprietor never desires the low-grade happiness just such as the workers may desire. different people have different levels of happiness. If someone working in someone may be working in one of Mr. Ambani's factories, and he may give his wife some locket for her birthday, the person working in the factory.
Locket?
Well, I don't know the Tamil word. It's a common word we find because it comes in our Vaishnava literature. So, but if Mr. Ambani only gives his wife a little locket, she'll think, what's that? So what for us seems to be something very great, for Krishna is something very small. So Krishna can renounce any amount of material enjoyment because he's not interested in any of it. But Krishna never gives up the love of his devotees. He's controlled by the love of his devotees. Now, Krishna's devotees, they're also renounced from this world. For the same reason that Krishna is renounced. The devotees, of course, they don't own everything as Krishna does, but they share in the love that Krishna shares with his devotees. So when Krishna has such a very high standard of happiness, that all the devotees love him, then why should he be attracted to petty sense gratification? The devotees, they also experience the happiness of bhakti. So why should they be interested in mundane sense gratification? That's why we find that Krishna's devotees, they're automatically renounced from this world. They're not interested in trying to enjoy this world. One devotee was telling me that there's these iPods. Maybe you all know what an iPod is. All the young people know what it is. It's something like this. You see all the time people walking around with their speakers in their ears. That means most likely they're listening to an iPod. So you can listen to all kinds of music. So one devotee was telling me that the brahmacharis, as soon as they came out, all the brahmacharis in his temple, they all had iPods. Even before most of the people in the town had even heard of what an iPod is, all the brahmacharis had. So he thought that was a bit ironic. I don't know if there's any word in Tamil for ironic. Ironic means it's kind of incongruous. It doesn't seem to. You expect a brahmachari is going to be very renounced, but then he's got the latest technological gizmo. But then, alright, they've got that, but then we expect that they're using it in Krishna's service, to listen to lectures and kirtans. They're not using it like most people use it for listening to mundane music. Of course, the pristine simplicity of traditional sadhus, that's also laudable. Pristine means like the original pure style. When we see someone who's a sadhu and he only walks everywhere, he never goes in any vehicle, I don't think there's any sadhus like that left. Maybe there are in the Himalayas or something. Who doesn't have a cell phone? Difficult to find a sadhu without a cell phone these days. No shoes, no bank account. They think, well, that's a real sadhu. So that kind of renunciation is appreciated, but of course it may not be so appropriate for one who has to preach Krishna consciousness, because we have to preach consciousness in the world today, so we have to interact with it and relate with it somewhat. So if we use the cell phone for communicating with others so that we can arrange traveling here and there to preach Krishna consciousness, then that's not Maya. But of course, we have to be very careful when we're living in the world of Maya not to be swallowed by Maya. Just like you may think, well, I need a cell phone to do my service properly. But then if we think, I always have to have the latest, up-to-date, most fantastic, every month I have to get a new cell phone because I have to have the greatest, latest cell phone, then it would seem that is not a fully renounced attitude. And if we are attached to this material world, then we can't attain Krishna's mercy. At least we can't attain His full mercy. Krishna is available, or he makes himself available to persons who have nothing of this world. Janmaishvarya Shruta Shribhir Edamana Madah Puman Naiva Hatya Vidhatum Vai Tvam Akincana Krsna. You know this verse? This is spoken by Kunti Devi. She is addressing Krishna, and she says that persons who are very proud because they're born in a very high family, or they're very proud because they have lots of money, or they're very good looking and they're very conscious that I'm very good looking, or they're very, they've got MSc, PhD, and they think, well, I'm not. For all these people, they only have SSC pass. They're very convinced of their superiority because of their educational qualification. So they may be superior to others because of their high birth, wealth, beauty, or education. But they cannot attain the mercy of this actually most superior person, who is Krishna, because Krishna is Akincana Krsna, means he makes himself available to those who have nothing in this world. Akincana literally means one who has nothing. But in one sense you can't, well, you may think, so then, well, you should, alright, you have nothing, you give up everything, give away all your money and everything, then you have nothing, then you can get Krishna. But you can't really have nothing, because you still have to breathe. If you say, well, I'll have nothing, no clothes also, that may not be very practical. And what are you going to eat today? Nothing, because, nothing. Now I have nothing. So we can't really have nothing. On the other hand, we don't really have anything, because nothing belongs to us anyway. Everything belongs to Krishna. So what does it mean to be akincana, to have nothing? It means that one who has no aspiration other than to satisfy Krishna. One who is not trying to increase his material situation in any way. It means one who has nothing except Krishna. No interest other than to serve Krishna. In this verse we're reading from Bhagavad-gita, Lord Krishna says that I don't desire the fruit of any work. I'm not affected by any work. This refers to material work, because Krishna is always active in his pastime. Krishna is very busy. He gets up early in the morning, he eats a big breakfast after milking the cows. First he milks the cows, in the cow herd pastures. And he comes back again and again milks the cows, takes bath, has another big meal, and after some time he takes rest. But he doesn't take rest. He secretly skips off and he's dancing all night with the gopis. So Krishna says in this verse, I have no work to do, but actually he's very busy. But that busyness is Ananda Chinmaya Rasa. That is Ananda Chinmaya Rasa. Transcendental spiritual bliss. So a devotee has nothing in this world, but he has everything because he is Krishna, Akincana Krsna. A devotee is very rich. If people hear this, they may think, oh really, that sounds good, maybe I should become a devotee too. But the kind of richness a devotee has would disappoint the materialist. People think a good religion is one that gives you lots of money. You get the blessings of God and then your business expands. But that's not the real blessings. The real blessing is when we become so rich with love of Krishna that we see everything in this world as insignificant. Krishna also finds the love of his devotees so pleasing that he has no interest in material enjoyment. So a devotee is akincana, it means he has nothing of this world, he only has Krishna. And Krishna is also akincana, he has nothing but his devotees. He owns everything, but he's not interested in manipulating or exploiting anything. Krishna is only interested in increasing the pleasure of his devotees. Devotees don't take pleasure in anything mundane. Devotees only take pleasure in Krishna. So Krishna gives pleasure to his devotees by giving himself to them. Thus Krishna is always playing with his devotees and having various pastimes. To devotees who desire him in that form, he is Brajanath, the Lord of Vrindavan. And to please various devotees in various moods, he appears as Mathuranath and Dwarkanath And he also appears as Narasimhadev, as Ramachandra, in so many forms, just to please his various devotees. So Krishna, he has everything, but still he is not attached to anything. And a devotee doesn't aspire to own anything because he has everything, who is Krishna. So in this way we can understand the meaning of the name Akincana Krsna Das. It means a devotee of Krishna, and the devotee has nothing but Krishna. And it also means a devotee of Krishna who has nothing but his devotees. So many of these names you can take it either way. Just like if we take the name, for instance, Radhananda, that's the name of Krishna. That means he who is the Ananda of Radha, and also means one who takes pleasure in Radha. So it works both ways.
Hare Krishna.
Is there any question about this?
ஏதாவது கேள்வி இருக்காதுல?
பௌதிக ஞான முன்னேற்றத்தை வந்து பகவானுடைய செயல்களுக்கு பயன்படுத்தப்பட்டாக அது வந்து பௌதிகமான நுட்பமா ஆன்மீகமான
பௌதிக விஞ்ஞான
பௌதிக விஞ்ஞான முன்னேற்றத்தை வந்து பகவான் கிருஷ்ணனுடைய சேவையில் பயன்படுத்தப்பட்டார். பௌதிக முன்னேற்றமா ஆன்மீகம், பௌதிகமா ஆன்மீகம்.
If you want to use material science in Krishna service, such is that, is it material or spiritual? Asked by Nadu.
Well, if the idea is only to please Krishna, then it's spiritual. But we have to be very careful how we consider this, because many of the contributions of modern science, they also, in one sense they benefit people, in another sense they are detrimental. Just like you can use a motor car to go from one place to another, but that can be used for Krishna's service. But at the same time, it is very polluting. And if we want to establish a more simple way of life, which is more conducive for Krishna consciousness, then we should not become dependent on motor cars. So we have to be quite judicious. That means thoughtful in how we use everything. On the whole, this modern way of life is not conducive to Krishna consciousness. While we are within this society, we may use different features of this society just to operate within it. But we should understand that this is not a very normal way of life. And we should understand this can't last very long anyway. India at the present is urbanizing very quickly. All the people are moving from the village to the cities. But this way of life is unsustainable. It's not that forever so much goods, all the food can be shipped into the cities. As soon as there's an oil problem, then everything gets broken down. So people think, well, how can we live without electricity? But we have to go through so much anxiety to get some money to get all these things. So we think, well, it would be terrible if we didn't have electricity. The people live for generations without this. Now, speaking to the older generation here, how many of you grew up without electricity, or without the electricity would only come on very, not much? Yeah, Govinda Ram. What about Akincana Krsna? Even in your village, I think there wasn't much. There wasn't much. I traveled in Bangladesh for years, and I'd go village to village, and there was no electricity. And would you say that you're feeling incredible ecstasy and you're feeling much happiness because you have electricity? Was life really that much worse because you didn't have electricity? Actually, you see, before TV, people used to talk to each other. Now, families, they all come back from work late, they don't eat meals together, and then they watch TV, they never even talk with each other. I know myself, I was growing up with my sisters, I didn't have any brothers, only sisters, but I hardly ever spoke to them. Nothing to talk about. So, yeah, we can use material things in Krishna's service, but we should know that by nature they tend to, the modern scientific inventions, by nature, they just by their very nature of them, they tend to degrade the human spirit. And we can practically see, I mean, India is very degraded, but if you see like the young girls in the village and they get married early and they have children, and I'm not saying they're perfect, but they're not nearly as complicated as the girls in the city who are all interested in fashions and their minds are all messed up. Last night in Avadi, in Chennai, we were going on Harinam Sankirtan in the urban area. How is it? Residential area. Yeah, well, not exactly Gram, it's in the city, but it's like that. You could say people not very high income group. And so many young women were bringing out their children and touching them to the feet of the sadhu. But if you go in the so-called high class area where all the people are very educated and they're, why should I? They won't do that. They've become more sophisticated. They've become so advanced that they don't know how to act for the ultimate benefit. I can't bring my child to bow down before the sadhu. They might become religious. I have to make them study more and more and more, all kinds of psychological problems, so they can be a genuine modern youth. So people think that, well, if you have to have lots of scientific or technological gizmos and then you're advanced. But from our perspective, the tendency to bow down before Krishna and his devotees, that is advanced culture, which is destroyed by the false pride of this ridiculous so-called advanced civilization. People are really mesmerized by this modern so-called scientific advancement. In India, not in the West. So take Prabhupada's books and go door to door, village to village and preach this message. It's not simply some sentiment, but we have something practical to offer. A practical process by which one can become free from Maya. So many of you are enthusiastically preaching Krishna consciousness. Go on. Then so many things we have to do. Cow protection. People think cow protection is stupid. We should kill them and get the money. People are thinking like this because they are sinful. Only a sinful person would want to kill cows. But we have to show how people can live simply and happily and very opulently by worshipping and looking after the cows. Just a few days ago in Punjab, I was introduced to someone who works for some Go-Rakshas society. So he and his friends, they go and they find out where the cow killing is going on and they go and kill the killers of the cows. He said the only way this cow killing is going to stop is if we kill the killers. Well, that's one approach. As Srila Prabhupada, he wanted to demonstrate practically how people can live simply and happily by depending on the land, the cows and Krishna. Anything else? You want to go and kill some people, is it? You want to find out the address and join them? You want to join the killers of the cow killers? It's better we show positively. Yeah, no?
As you mentioned, Krishna is said to be in Anandamaya Rasa.
Well, I already did actually. In the next line, which I said in English, I stated that Krishna is always enjoying transcendental, blissful pastimes. Ananda means Ananda. Everyone knows the meaning. Chinmay means transcendental to this material world. And Rasa means the exchange of spiritual bliss between the Lord and His devotee. Hare Krishna. So we'll finish there. Thank you very much for coming. Very happy to see you all again. Hare Krishna.
Maharaj, one small question, Maharaj. Killing other living beings like lizards, cockroaches, mosquitoes, how is it taken? If we can't avoid sometimes. That's also a living being, but still we have to.
No, it's always better to avoid. If we're clean, then cockroaches won't come. But generally, everyone just throws their garbage and the kitchen scraps. They just throw it here and there. Then naturally, rats and cockroaches will come.
Kali Yuga.
Okay. For mosquitoes, we can use this rather than killing them, we can, just like this, there's this coil. Traditionally this dhuna, what's that called in Tamil? That they get the coconut smoke and then the frankincense. That's better than this. That's poisonous also. Poisonous to mosquitoes and poisonous